Welcome to Debbie Brown Quilts video podcast. I'm Debbie Brown, and with me today is my friend Joliene Williams from Dutchess County Quilts. Hi, Joliene.
Hi, how are you?
I'm happy to see you.
I'm very happy to see you too.
Joliene and I live very near each other, but we are seeing each other through the computer because of social distancing. So it's fun to get together with quilters this way and chat about our projects.
Yes, I love seeing what you are doing.
And vice versa. I think we blow up Facebook and our phones all the time. This week I'm talking about using 1.5-inch strips that I cut for my Sweet Tooth Cutie quilt. I know as a mom I'm not allowed to play favorites, but I do have some favorite cutie patterns that I designed, and Sweet Tooth is one of them. I know, Joliene, you've helped me make a Sweet Tooth before.
Yes, I've started to make a Sweet Tooth, and I think they're adorable, and they have a really good space for a particular type of quilting, Debbie.
That might be the ribbon candy.
It might be.
Last summer, you actually helped me make a Sweet Tooth quilt when I broke my collarbone. You know, a real friend, whenever they call and say, "Hi, I'm coming over to cut fabric for you."
And you can't say no.
And I can't say no because I was broken. So you did cut fabric for me. I have made that quilt and given it away, but you were possibly wondering, why do I need to cut hundreds of 1.5-inch strips? I think it was 40 actually, but I used them all. So I have a vast collection of black and white fabrics, and I know you've seen some of them, Joliene.
I love them.
Some of them are goofy. Maybe 5 years ago, I bought a collection of black and white storybook prints, and by collection, I mean bolts, like 20 plus bolts of fabric. And they've been my backings for several years. Every time I finish a quilt, I have all the scraps left over, and what do you do with all of these black and white storybook prints that have clowns, or a little girl with an umbrella, or a bear playing baseball, or a girl sitting next to a dead goose on a bench?
What do you do with all those, Debbie?
I shove them in a bag. I have sewn them together to make scrappy backings, but I then have little pieces left over. So I decided to take my bag of black and white leftover storybook prints, even though they're all different prints, and cut them into strips for the backgrounds of Sweet Tooth. I've been under stress for the last couple weeks. I know you've been under stress for the last couple weeks. I think the planet's been under stress for the last couple weeks. And I release my stress by quilting ribbon candy. So I needed to sew a bunch of strips, which is stress relieving in and of itself, and make this quilt. Whenever I pulled out the black and white prints, though, I went into my cutie collections and I was trying to find strong colors that weren't heavily printed, because I was concerned that heavy prints would get lost against the black and white prints, since they're larger prints as the background. So I didn't want to use all solids, but I used a lot of tonals and made a quilt, so that was fun. And I pulled out some background fabric, some border fabric. That's bright orange, also a tonal bright orange. And I think this quilt really worked. I quilted it quickly using da-da-da-da.
Drum roll, please.
Drum roll. Ribbon candy, only in the background. I love using wool batting for the texture that it gives my quilt, the higher loft of it, that whenever I don't quilt the colored strips and do quilt the background strips, I get some great texture on my quilt of the flat parts and the puffy parts. Do you have any special tips for using higher loft batting or wool batting, puff batting?
I love using puff for my winter quilts because they just look so warm and fluffy and comfy, and you just want to snuggle up under them. And I also like using the wool for my other season quilts. The loft, just if you have a go-to quilting motif that you really like, that it always just shows it off so well. I really like cotton, though, when you have a beautiful, nice flat quilt top, and it just does such a great job of showing off straight and geometrical lines.
It does. I love all battings. But my go-to is wool for myself when I'm quilting on a long arm and for all the quilts that I use. Someone asked me why I liked the wool batting so much, and I said because I like to show off. It shows off my machine quilting, and I love that about it. You teach long arm quilting.
I do.
Do you have any special things you have to do on a long arm quilting machine when you use a higher loft batting, or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter. You can use a high loft, a low loft. I've even double layered. It all will work on your long arm.
Okay. That's been my experience, but I know for home sewing machines or stationary long arms where you are moving the fabric and you have to baste the sandwich together, that the higher loft battings are a little trickier to use. They make the fabric distort a bit. They make it easier to get a pucker or a pleat in your quilt. So when I teach beginning quilting, I don't start my beginners on a higher loft batting. I have special teaching on how to use the higher lofts. So if you're just starting, wool is great, but maybe don't start there. Start with a flatter batting, a cotton or a bonded polyester. I had fun quilting this. I only quilted ribbon candy in the body of the quilt, only on the background fabrics, and I used a really boring white thread. I think it was Omni, cream white, somewhere in that family. And then in the bobbin, I used DecoBob in the bobbin from Wonderfill because it's a really thin bobbin thread. And no matter what I use on the top, I use DecoBob on the bobbin. I think you're a DecoBob lover too.
I am definitely a DecoBob lover.
And I know we're the same that way, but we're different this way. Do you wind your own bobbins or do you buy pre-wounds?
I find that I will wind my own bobbins. I'm okay with winding my own bobbins. I have a son and a daughter who like to come downstairs, and they are professionally trained to help me wind bobbins whenever I have a large quilt that's going to need a lot of bobbins. So I like putting them to work.
Okay. So your long arm's in the basement. Are you a cellar dweller?
I am. I live in a cave underneath my house.
Okay. Now, I will tell a little tale that you're a little younger than I am because you still have time to wind bobbins. I'm older than you are, and I no longer have time to wind bobbins, so I just use pre-wounds. And you also have minions at home, which is a plus for quilting in this way, but it's probably a minus for quilting in other ways. Does having children still living at home give you more time to quilt since they wind bobbins for you, or less time to quilt?
Oh, they give me way less time to quilt. They're very, very active. So part of their payment for me to be their unpaid Uber and chef and housekeeper is they have to wind bobbins.
So your kids are basically living their best life and you're their driver.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm their personal assistant, driver, chef. Yeah.
Tutor.
Mm-hmm.
All of that. There are times I miss having kids at home, but I do like having extra quilting time because I remember having tweens and teens at home. It was a busy time.
Yeah, we were doing a couple things, playing a couple games this weekend, and I know that there were some sew-alongs that were going on that I kind of missed, but it's okay because I can come back and I can still make those quilts, yeah. But I had that time with my kids.
Exactly. Having used white or cream Omni on top from Superior and DecoBob on the bottom from Wonderfill, those are two different thicknesses of threads and two different brands of threads used in my machine at the same time. I have been told that you have to use the same thread on the top and bobbin on your quilt, and that it had better be cotton.
Oh, who told you that?
Pretty much every quilter I've ever talked to, until I talk them out of it.
Good girl.
Yeah, I often mix and match my top and bobbin thread, but I like the thin bobbin thread because it makes a bobbin last longer. It's typically less expensive than the top thread, and it makes a beautiful stitch on the back. And my fourth reason to love them is they're pre-wound, and I don't have to wind a bobbin. Do you have any benefits, any other benefits of the DecoBob?
I love how sometimes I can take the DecoBob that's so much thinner and I can really just blend it into the back, and it just gives a beautiful texture on the back without changing the look of the back of your quilt.
So if I were using a purple thread on a red back, a purple DecoBob on the back of a pink quilt or a red quilt, you're saying it wouldn't show very much?
It doesn't show very much. It just gives you that really cool texture and loft if you're using a wool or a puff batting, and it just blends in and it looks super cool.
I agree. I'm a big fan. I can't remember the last time I used something that wasn't. Actually, I can. I was making pot holders and trivets and microwavable things, and I used cotton thread in my bobbin for all of those because I didn't want to melt the polyester with the heat from the oven. But other than that, I'm a DecoBob girl.
Yeah, I love some DecoBob thread.
Once I finished quilting all of the blocks on this quilt with white thread, I added a border. It was orange, tonal. And when I started quilting, long arm quilting, oh my word, over 20 years ago, I would use 10, 15 different colors in the same quilt. But now, for the same reason I don't want lined bobbins, because ain't nobody got time for that, I also don't change my thread color often. So I continued the quilting in the border in my go-to swirl pattern that I use in everything that I want to quilt without having to think about it. And I quilted white thread over this bright orange fabric. Are you a blender, or do you just kind of go with it, color-wise, when talking about thread?
That question scares me. I think it's a little bit of a loaded question.
It is.
I think it depends on the quilt. For your beautiful quilts that you're giving to a friend or a loved one that you want them to use, I'm a one thread kind of person. If I'm doing some really intricate piecework and I've got some really beautiful quilting that I'm putting in there and I've got some very different colors, then I'm a blender.
I can see both ways. I really can.
Yeah, I kind of let the quilt speak to me.
I don't do tons and tons of custom quilting that require me to change threads, so it might not be that I changed my mind. I might have changed the type of quilts that I did. Mm-hmm. That could be what happened. This quilt I made for myself. I made this quilt so that I could quilt ribbon candy. As far as I'm concerned, I can burn the quilt now. It has served its purpose.
Do not burn the quilt.
I won't burn the quilt. I do have a fire pit, and it's a nice day today, but I'm not going to burn the quilt. While I was finishing binding it, since I am not going to burn it, if I were going to burn it, the quilt would not be bound. I bound this, and I used this as one of the samples for machine binding in my online machine binding class. I know quilters are looking for online education now, so I'm spending my time at home filming the classes that I typically teach in person and putting them online. This quilt binding I did by machine on both sides. So I sewed it to the quilt by machine. I flipped it over and sewed the fold down by machine as well. And I used a decorative stitch on my sewing machine. It went really fast, and I love machine binding because it gets my quilts done within an hour of finishing them, and I never have to go back and revisit an old project that way. Now,
and you have wonderful classes on how to do this that really teaches people in depth how to do it and how to turn your corners and how to make sure that they are very comfortable in what they're doing when it comes to machine binding.
Thank you. I'll pay you later. Having said that, what are you doing while we're talking right now?
I am hand binding. I am working on a quilt that I think I started maybe 4 years ago. It's been in the UFO pile a long time.
And you enjoy hand binding?
I really do. I don't know how to applique. I love to English paper piece though, but I want to make a very intricate one, and I haven't quite found the one that really speaks to me the most that I want to do. So I really enjoy this type of handwork. I do like to cross stitch, but I find that, hey, I just finished a quilt and the binding is on it. I might as well sit down and stitch it down.
So this fills your need for handwork.
Yeah, definitely does.
Yeah, I love to applique and do other handwork. So this is the last thing I would do by hand because I want to do pretty stuff. But what's cool about quilting is we get to pick the parts we like.
That's right. And let me know when you put out that class on hand applique.
Okay. That one is pretty far down on the list. As in, it's not on the list at this time, and it probably won't be, but we'll work on it. This sweet tooth is quilted and bound. It was a sample in a class, and I am done with it. What I am going to do, however, is I'm going to introduce myself to a neighbor who moved in a couple years ago, and we've never really gotten to know each other than waving as we drive by. It's the problem of having a really long driveway. I don't walk to get my mail. So I'm going to head on over and do a porch drop with my phone number on it. It's a time to check on your neighbors and get to know the people living around you. So I do know from the toys in the yard that they have children, and I'm guessing there might be some boys, which is why I thought this quilt would be a good fit. It's got a bright colors, it's got an orange border. It doesn't scream girl, it doesn't scream boy, but I think it'll be a good family quilt.
And it should be well loved. It's a beautiful quilt.
I hope they really enjoy it. With that quilt finished, I still felt the need to quilt more ribbon candy, just for its therapeutic value. So I went in through my stash, pulled out more of the black and white scraps, pulled out more strong colors that weren't heavily patterned, made another quilt, used more wool batting, quilted it up, and this time I chose a purple pinky fuchsia-y, whatever color you want to call this. Quilted it exactly the same. I also used this as a sample in my binding class. So this quilt did what it was supposed to do, but it doesn't have a home quite yet. I know I have another neighbor I want to give a quilt to. She's maybe 10 years older than me and a recent widow. This quilt feels really, really happy, and I just get the feeling that she should have a softer quilt, like grown-up colors. Do you ever get that feeling about people and quilts?
Yeah, it's funny because I've had quilts before that I've made that I think I'm making for me, and then by the time I'm done, I realize that I wasn't making it for me. It definitely screams somebody else is getting this quilt.
I love that they talk to us.
Me too.
Usually when fabric talks to me, though, it screams, buy me, buy all of me, buy the bolt.
Come pet me.
Yes. I can't wait to go fabric shopping again.
Oh,
that's going to be fun.
It'll be a beautiful day.
It will be. But we'll stay home and quilt until then. So this quilt is in the reserve pile. I'm sure that it will tell me who its owner is in due time. I need to make another sample, and I have a collection of Burlap Fabrics from Benartex, and they're really woodsy manly colors. I noticed there's no blues, there's no pinks. Apparently the ones I picked were all really woodsy manly. They exist in the collection, I just didn't buy them. I might have to fix that. So I love these burlap fabrics, and I think I'm going to have to use wool batting in this one, because I think this is going to be like a manly, or at least a non-feminine, cozy, snuggly quilt. I think it's really going to need the loft in there to continue with the texture of the fabric. Because the burlap fabric's not burlap, it's just a print, so it feels great. So I think I'll make another one out of that. And That's going
to be a really fun quilt.
I've been loving the burlap.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
I didn't realize that it could be so elegant and so lovely. I pulled out 2 of the burlaps for my March serviettes, which is my cloth napkin pattern. We're a big cloth napkin family, and I've been making cloth napkins to send to my children's families every month. So in January, I honestly don't remember what I gave them. It was snowmen. In February, they got Valentine's fabric with Cupids. In March, I never got around to because I got sick. And my house was under major construction there was just no time. So when I needed a quick project, I pulled out my serviette pattern and made myself a set for St. Patrick's Day. Just in time. So my kids did not get them. I texted a picture to my daughter-in-law and asked if they would want them for next year. They're like, what do you mean next year? We'll use them every day for the texture. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be green though. So I sent them to my website and had them pick any colors they wanted. And they wanted this iris and charcoal combination.
What a great combo.
Oh, it was lovely. And I even went and I top stitched it with a purple variegated from Connecting Threads. Oh, it is so lovely. So my daughter-in-law is waiting for these, texting me. I need these. I haven't mailed them because they're still mine as long as they're in the house. But I will mail them. Who knew burlap would just be so elegant like that?
And so much fun.
It is. I was totally shocked. I bought it just as to fill in my fabric collection. So, yeah, everything I'm doing now is going to be out of burlap, I have a feeling. I have a collection. The Cutie collection is on my website as well as yardage. When I sell fabric, it's at a discount, but you have to buy whole yards. It's just so much easier that way than telling you to put it in quarter yards, and if you want 1 3/4, you have to buy 7 or of something. That's more math than I can handle. So I do have to sell in whole yards. I know you've used some burlap because I left some on my porch for you.
You sure did.
What did you make with it?
I also made serviettes. I also made them for St. Patrick's Day. I used shamrocks. And then
so
the burlap
pretty.
is right here. And what I love about the burlap is it makes a great blender. There's so many different tones in the print that it goes so well with all the tones in my shamrocks.
Those are so pretty and so clean. You must not have used those yet.
They're unused.
I'm actually working on more serviettes today because I have some really cool umbrella fabric from Riley Blake because April showers bring May flowers. Let me tell you what a struggle it was picking the second fabric to go with that because it's pink fabric with a metallic gold umbrella on it. Oh, the time I had.
I have a joke for you. If April showers bring May flowers, what do May flowers bring?
Bees.
Pilgrims. You're welcome.
You got me. You got me. In addition to sewing serviettes, I think you've been making a sweet tooth as well.
I have. I've started one that's going to be a calendar quilt.
A calendar quilt? Are you using calendar pages, paper?
No, I'm digging through my scrap bin, and I am making, each block is a different time of the year or a different season of the year. This one is my April showers, my gray storm clouds, and my blue rain.
Okay.
And then this one is for Halloween.
You have some dents and skeletons on there.
I do. I think those are Rashida Coleman Hale, but I'm not positive.
They're lovely.
I can check on that.
Now, when you were piecing that block, did you notice that how important the 1/4-inch seam was when making that?
Your 1/4-inch seam is very important because throughout the block you have 5 seams to make sure that you get the right 1/4-inch seam to end up with a 6.5-inch unfinished block.
Yes. I made that mistake before, and that made it very interesting to quilt whenever my blocks were not square, but I sewed them together anyway. And as a long-arm
Oh,
quilter, you know, you can just quilt all that extra puffy blocks out, right?
It's a lot easier to quilt out your own extra puffiness because if you know that you've pieced it wrong, it's okay to kind of just quilt it so you get it quilted. But yeah, you really want to make sure that 1/4 inch is spot on for these blocks.
It's not a mistake you're going to make twice.
No, it's not.
So I will get to filming the Sweet Tooth class, but not just yet. Because right now I'm filming classes on how to quilt Gudrun Erla from GE Designs. GEQuiltdesign.com, I think, is her website. She had a great big quilt along last week on how to make her Elvira quilt pattern. I think 16,000 people quilted together from their homes, and we broke the internet. But I'm filming classes on...
It is going to be great seeing 16,000 different versions of Elvira.
It is. It's going to be beautiful.
I cannot wait.
I'm filming classes on different ways to quilt that on your home sewing machine. So the Sweet Tooth will be coming after Elvira. And by the way, if you're not singing Elvira in your head yet...
The Oak Ridge boys are going to be very disappointed.
Exactly. So if you haven't sewn along, go to gequiltdesigns.com. Check her out on Facebook. She has a Facebook group. I think it's Gudrun's Quilt Crew. She's going to start a new quilt along very soon. I think it was announced over the weekend. So look for more fun stuff from her.
And if I can give her a little plug, you've got to check out her rulers. Her rulers are really cool. They're Stripology, I think is the name of them, and they're super neat.
I don't have one yet. Wink.
Wink, wink.
Yesterday, I did have to venture out to do a porch pickup because I needed some 505 basting spray. Otif is sending me some, but I needed some locally because I have to use it now, and I won't get their shipment until tomorrow. And a lot of the warehouses are closed right now, so I'm scrounging for it. So I drove out, did a porch pickup, and on my way back home, I saw my mail truck, my postal service truck, coming back toward me. So I pulled over and waved. I've had the same mail carrier for probably the 18 years I've lived here, and she knows that I have chased her down with mail before. And she was like, "Oh, do you need to give me mail?" And we were just waving and blowing kisses at each other because I miss my mail carrier. And I wave to my UPS guy when he delivers from the top of my back porch, which is elevated. So, yeah, it's amazing how important they've always been and how much more we realize it now. So I cannot wait till my rulers come.
They're coming. They're coming. We ordered pizza last night, which was, that was a treat for us. We haven't done it. And we actually had it delivered. Usually I go pick it up, but I had it delivered and I asked for a contactless porch delivery. And Hillary had written a sign that said thank you on it, and I put the tip out there. And she was so excited when pizza came that she was kind of spying on the delivery person. And she said they were really excited to get a tip. And I felt really bad because I'm wondering how many people are not tipping them just because they're not having contact with them. And these people are out there and they're doing you a service. You float them a little cash.
Exactly. I use delivery service when I travel frequently. If I've been working all day or traveling all day, when I get to my hotel, my what's for dinner question is answered by who will bring me food. And the worse the weather is, the higher the tip is. Because if they have to come out in bad weather that I don't want to go out in, they get a nice tip.
Yes. If they're braving the cold and the rain, they're getting a good tip.
I am going to get back to filming my classes. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Debbie Brown Quilts video podcast. And a special thanks to Joliene Williams from Dutchess County Quilts for joining us today.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I'm so glad I got to be here with you.
have some fun quilting, and I'm going to go scrounge for some chocolate now.